Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm on campus outside and I'd like to share a little bit about my experience, or more specifically my learning experience in UCL as a mechanical engineering student in my first year, and I'm going to talk about the first month here. So before I dive into my experience, I'd like to recap a little bit about my background. So I'm from Malaysia and I previously studied in College Tuanku Jaafar, Malaysia. I did my A-levels there and I graduated with 3 A stars and 1 AA plus 1 A star, which is for the extended project qualification. I'm a fully sponsored student under Shell Malaysia. So I'm sponsored to study for my A-levels and for my undergraduate. So for my experience, I'm going to talk about 6 things, which is firstly the transition, the difficulty, the teaching quality, workload, peers, and also social life. So let's talk about the first thing, which is transition. Now the question is, do they prepare you for what to expect? Now fortunately for UCL Mech Eng, they do. They provided the Year 1 Mech Eng unofficial guide. The most important part, which I felt was really helpful, was what you will be learning in Year 1. So they included the subject timeline. Now this was basically all the subjects that we were going to learn in Year 1 and at which months we were going to learn them. And also they provided an assessment timeline. So this was a timeline that they showed all the assessments that we were going to do, from which month and the weightage of each assessment. So I felt that this really helped me to mentally prepare for what to expect and what exams are important. Another important topic that they included in the guide was the subject, the brief or the summary of every subject that we were going to learn in Year 1. Term 1, you will only learn 4 subjects. 2 of those subjects actually split into 2 further modules, so practically you're learning 6 subjects. And also the most important part of the guide was that they tell you how much your grades actually matter to your final grade of your first year and towards the final grade of your degree. So the first year final grade contributes to 1/14 of your final grade, which equates to about 7% of your degree grade. So that was really helpful to give me an idea or how important first year is, which 7% isn't much, but it counts because it serves as your stepping stone or the momentum that you build in order to excel in your second, third, and fourth year. Let's talk about the negative parts. So I feel like timetable and Moodle were the bad parts for transition. Now I feel that the Mech Eng department really leaves a lot to be desired in terms of timetabling, as they have really late updates for class timings and for class locations. Now this frustrated a lot of students, a lot of my peers, including me as well, as sometimes I would not know if I had a class for the next day and they would only update that class the afternoon before that day. So it's really frustrating to go through that kind of situation. Now let's talk about Moodle. So basically Moodle is an online learning space. It's where lecturers communicate to us what are the assignments that we have, and it's where we submit our assignments, and also where we can find pre-recorded lectures. Moodle has an overwhelming amount of information, which can be very difficult for first years in their first week trying to figure out how to use it. I feel like they just dump every single information that you would possibly need, including things like act of misconduct, extenuating circumstances. So going through Moodle and trying to find out what's important was really difficult because I didn't know what is important for the first week in order for me to read, and I ended up just going through, spending for like 4 hours reading through the Moodle because I thought everything was important. So the only solution to Moodle is that there's no other way. You just have to get used to it. You just have to keep on using it, and eventually you will get the hang of it. Now let's talk about the difficulty of the course. So how difficult is it compared to A-levels? Generally, I don't feel it's that difficult. I'll put up the subjects that I learned here, and I'll try to rate them from 1 to 5, 5 being super hard and 1 being easy. So these are the subjects that I learned and their scores. Challenges is teaching us how to research, how to cite, and how to present. Design is more about organizational skills and how to be creative, or how to use certain tools in order to structure how you think about designing solutions to a certain problem. Now the third subject is professional skills. So basically these are the skills that you need in order to produce a technical writing, or in order to convey a certain information to a specific group of audience with a specific educational background. The next subject is mathematical modeling and analysis. So basically this is maths, but it's actually further divided into two. One is the basic maths and one is MATLAB, which is a software that engineers use to model problems using maths. In the maths part, we learn the things that I've already learned in maths and also in further maths back in A levels. The only new thing that I learned so far is dimensional analysis. The other things that we've learned are such as vector, matrices, calculus, and integral. So I was able to cope with that. It was just a refresh of what we had learned. The only difference was that the questions that we had was basically A-level questions but on steroids. The next subject is thermal fluids. Now I feel like thermal fluids is the most interesting one because back in A-levels I really liked physics, and this is like a continuation of physics but on a specific theme. It's like the flow of energy and also fluids. And I feel like this is probably the most difficult subject because it's very concept heavy and you have to understand in order to excel. And the things that we learned so far are like states, equilibrium, quasi-equilibrium, steady flow, energy flow, path functions, energy balance, and a lot of Bernoulli equation. And the last subject is statics. Now statics is basically mechanics from A levels, and right now all that we are learning are just extensions of what we've learned before. So forces and moments, equilibrium and friction, and also analysis of structure. So I've been able to cope with all of these because they are just an extension of A levels and what you have learned. There's only a few minor additions to, for example, new concepts, but I feel that thermal fluids has the most amount of new concepts that you will learn. Next, let's talk about teaching quality. So I've divided teaching quality into 4 aspects. The first one is their ability to explain. Now I feel that only one of my subject, there is a lecturer who explains really well, meaning to say he can take abstract concepts and he can break it down into very fundamental explanations for us in order to understand. The second aspect that I want to talk about is taking questions. So I feel like all of my lecturers are able to take questions very well, meaning that they don't condemn you, they don't embarrass you for asking even stupid questions, and they answer it very seriously and they give you very satisfactory answers. Now the third aspect is whether they use teaching tools or not. Now I feel like only one of my subjects actually maximizes the number of tools that they use to teach, and that is for design. So he used Mural a lot, which is a very interactive tool if you're teaching a class and doing a lot of collaborative work. And lastly, teaching method. I feel that teaching method varies greatly from one professor or doctor to another because they prefer different styles of teaching. For example, I have one professor who prefers to upload pre-recorded lectures and asks us to watch it before we attend a lecture with him, where during that lecture he will ask us to ask him questions on things that we don't understand. So that way he feels it's more productive and we actually are able to answer the doubts that we have. On the other hand, there are some lecturers who don't post pre-recorded lectures, but they teach the notes or the new content during the lecture time that they have. So some students prefer that, some don't. I guess on the positive side, it caters to the spectrum of students who have different styles of studying. So I feel like it's balanced. Now the next thing we talk about is workload. Is it intense? Before I entered UCL, I did have a sense of idea that UCL is not that intense if you compare it to Imperial or Cambridge. And fair enough, it actually is not that intense. There isn't an insane amount of workload that you have to do. But in the beginning, it will always feel as if your workload is very intense. Why? Because for me, from my personal experience, I had not developed a routine in order to efficiently complete my assignments, quizzes, tutorials, and whatnot. So I had a lot of things on my mind. I had to cook, I wanted to go out, I wanted to socialize. So I didn't manage to divide my time well in order to complete these assignments. But as you go along the weeks, you will find a routine start to shape, and you know what to do and what to complete within what time. I've only pulled one all-nighter, which is not a lot, and that is just due to my procrastination. Now let's talk about peers in the same year group. So I feel that generally everyone is friendly to you in the beginning, but it's not that they're not friendly as the weeks progresses. It's just that it's hard to enter specific friend groups once you reach week 3 or week 4, because friend groups tend to stick with each other and tend to study with each other. It's not to say that you can't make friends afterwards, you can, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of socializing. So I suggest that early on you try to make friends and you try to find a group that you can study with, which is the most important thing, and that you can hang out with if you want on the weekends. So half of my peers are international and the other half are local. And about 20% of them are girls and 80% of them are boys. And last but not least, social life. I feel like social life here is very sufficient. There are many opportunities for you to go to parties, clubs and pubs. There's always they're always organized at least once a week or maybe twice a week. And there's a lot in the weekends, of course. But if you're not into that kind of partying, which I personally am not, there are lots of social events as well through societies and clubs that you can join and enter. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. And also, because you're in London, you're basically smack bang in the middle of London. There's so many attraction places to visit, and you'll never run out of places to go on weekends. There's one point I want to talk about that doesn't fit into any of the things that I've said. It's that UCL Mech is more focused on the medical side or the biomedical side of things. For example, the head of engineering department really focuses his research on aneurysm and the brain tumor and how you use engineering to help people. And also the Mech department is famous for its Ventura project, which you can search right now. So during COVID, they developed a device that can get oxygen into people's lungs at an affordable price and also able to mass produce in a very short amount of time. So they're not really focused on the mechanical side, for example, like cars, if you're imagining things like engines, not that much. But in terms of medical aspects, that's where UCL Mech really excels at. So with that, thank you for watching and see you guys in the next one.